There we go. We are back
We
after
are
a
back.
long time away. We
It's
didn't
been
give up on everybody. We're here. It's just been a crazy, crazy month or so for Tina and I with various stuff. So we've been away for a while. But today we're going to talk about Cielo Drive. And not
we
just the
are.
house, but actually where it is that we're talking about and what part of LA it's in. So we should probably go ahead and just do the intro because it's been a while. So, and now, the return of the Whiskey and Cigarettes podcast with your hosts, Tina Kilberg and Tim Chessman, sponsored by
Tanya Tanning Butter.
Sterling Cooper and Partners, all your Madison Avenue advertising needs, and
I don't know. I can't remember. It's been too long. By the way, guys,
96 MFK Hit Radio Los Angeles. More music, more groove, let's talk. Okay, here we go. So
um,
it's a big
yeah,
one for us.
they should start getting us like free Tanya Tanning Butter
They don't
because
make it anymore.
we're like advertising the shit out of that for free. So,
They
well,
stopped
or
making it in the
the very
70s.
least, the very least they could do is recreate it, special edition, so
Do
we
you know
could
what
keep
it is now? It actually, you know what it is
drops.
now? It's Copper Tone.
Oh yeah.
Coppertone is the company that bought Tanya Tanning Butter way back in the day. So if you
Okay.
want the closest equivalent, get yourself some Coppertone. Because when you want that deeper, faster Hawaiian tan, get Tanya. Unless we live now, then you have to get Coppertone. So
Okay,
yeah,
that's fair. I didn't know that. Okay,
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Oh, that's long
'Cause I
gone.
swear
That's what
Copper
makes it
Tone,
so
wasn't
funny.
that the commercial that Sharon Tate did?
It
She did
is
a
indeed. Yep. For
yep.
Don't Make Waves. Yep. But I
Yeah.
think at that time they both still existed. But it's somewhere along the line, Coppertone bought out whatever company was making Tanya tanning butter. I think you could probably still find some old ones on eBay, but they probably cost a fortune. And I wouldn't want to dare open that bottle after 60 years.
Yeah. And
But there,
also yeah, and also not just Copper Tone, but like they created the Malibu Barbie in the early 1970s based on her character in Don't Make
mm-hmm,
Waves, which
yep.
is very interesting.
Which,
Like
for any Sharon fans out there who haven't seen that movie, I think most Sharon fans have seen all her movies, but that's a fun movie. I mean, no one's going to confuse it for a great movie, but it's shot on location in Malibu and LA. I mean, it's old school California. It's really cool. She's beautiful and very good in it for what they give her to do, which isn't a whole lot. But it's a
yeah,
fun movie. If anyone hasn't seen that, it's a fun, fun movie.
yeah.
Beautifully
Well,
shot.
they didn't really give her a lot to work with
No.
until maybe Valley of the Dolls or The Wrecking Crew. But even with all the films that she did, all 7 films, the roles were very limited. They were always like side characters. She
Mhm.
was never. They never gave her something. So
No, and it can be argued she kind of stole the show in Valley of the Dolls and especially the Wrecking Crew. That movie is as good as it is because she's good in it. I mean, that's again, it's a funny movie, and it's
of course she's gonna steal the show in Valley of the Dolls. The other two girls they paired her with looked ridiculous.
yeah, no, she was great in that. So what are we
So
talking about today? This is hopefully we've had this in the works for a while, but we've had so much going on we haven't been able to actually get together and film this. We're
yeah, so
talking
let's
about
actually talk about this. Something that Tim and I always bring up is that the setting is a very important aspect or part of storytelling, should I say. Sometimes the setting is a character in itself, and
mhm,
Cielo is definitely a character.
yep.
And the reason why I was so interested in exploring Cielo Drive and studying the history of the home and the tenants who live there was so I could capture a better understanding of the karma and of the home. And I'm someone who generally believes that buildings record events and energies of people that have roamed through those buildings, and for that reason, I think it's very important to really study a home to the best ability. And something that's very interesting was that when I initially started doing research on Cielo Drive, I conducted intuitive hypnosis sessions to assess the energy of the home back then, and I was capturing a home that felt that it was haunted. Now, this is we're delving into the esoteric world by the term haunted, which is a term I like avoiding.
Right. And that
Um,
goes back before even the events of 1969 and everything.
yes,
So this
yes,
is
but there
that
was, yeah,
house had overtones of that right way before then.
Yeah. And there was it just had a very eerie feeling. And I think it's because I can't remember her name, but there was a film star who was a very strange woman, 1920s looking kind of actress.
An early occupant.
Not Michelle, the first tenant. She was a strange
Oh
girl who
yes,
lived
no,
with
she and her mother live there.
and her
Her,
mother, yes. And
the
she
name
never
is
got
escaping me at the
married.
moment. I'll think
Yeah,
of it
never
at 2 in the
got
morning.
married, never had kids,
Yep.
was very lonely, but a very peculiar, strange person. So my best bet is that she carried a lot of weirdness, and she brought that element of weirdness into the home. But I think
Lillian Gish. Lillian Gish. That's
Lillian
her name.
Gish, that's
Yep.
her.
And that's the
Yeah.
thing. That's what we want to talk about today is that and the flyer for this episode, it says Cielo Drive Beyond the Obvious, because the part everybody knows is the crimes that happened in the late 60s, the 1969 crimes. But that home, like our other characters in this series that we're working on, have a fascinating story well beyond anything associated with the crimes. Sherry, Taryn, Terry, Jay Sebring, all had fascinating lives, as we've said, completely independent of how they ended. This home has a completely fascinating history, totally separate from the events of that summer. And we should probably talk about just geographically where we're talking about. So when we say Cielo Drive, it's a road in Beverly Hills. Beverly Hills proper, Benedict Canyon Drive is the road that splits off and is the main thoroughfare through Benedict Canyon, which is the area we're talking about, one of the main canyons in Los Angeles. And from there, Cielo Drive is a side street that branches off from Benedict Canyon Drive. And from there, it's an old narrow road, been there a long time. And from there, it goes into Cielo Drive proper, which is the main path that you can see in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. For reference, Brad Pitt as Cliff Booth driving on as he comes down the hill. That's Cielo Drive proper. That was really shot there. The place where Sharon and Terry's old house used to be is on that private drive, that private annex that goes up and then curves back around and goes up into the hills. And that's the geographic area we're talking about. That's also Cielo Drive, but it's the private drive off of Cielo Drive proper, which is a public road. So just as reference, that's the geographic part we're talking about.
Yeah. um, but I think also, well, there were a lot of great homes there in Benedict Canyon,
Mm.
um, Laurel Canyon as well. I think what interests me the most is what the home stood for, which was success. A lot of wealthy, famous people lived in that house. Cary Grant and his wife,
Correct? Yep.
Samantha, I believe, is her name. And
John Cannon, yeah.
yeah, very high profile people, and there were a lot of parties that were hosted at the home, so a lot of people came and visited, and I think that's what people were jealous of. Also, there's this story that not many people know of very well, which was that Tex, who was part of the Manson family and is still alive today, um, behind bars, of course, unless Gavin decides to change that as well. Um,
Hopefully
he
not. That would be a very big long shot for him to get out.
well,
Anything's possible now, as we've seen with recent events,
yeah.
unfortunately.
Uh, well, he actually he was a drug dealer. If I recall correctly, I believe he went to drop off some drugs at Cielo for someone, and he was waiting in the kitchen or something, and he saw Candice Bergen, who was Terry's girlfriend at the time and was living there, and
Mm.
he perceived her. And I have to clarify that he perceives her like this because I know that this woman is still alive, and I don't want to give any wrong impressions as to how the story is being told. But she, in this piece that I read, which was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, she was perceived as a very snobbish airhead, nose up high. So he just had this image of a blonde actress who was just very arrogant and
Mm.
conceited, and he just felt completely alienated from that world at that point onward. So it wasn't just that. There's recollections of um, Charles Manson going to Cielo parties, which strangely enough were all retracted and could not be found.
Well, and
Um,
again, it's
yeah,
again, as we've said in other videos, the further we get away from that time historically, the harder it is to nail down facts. And there's a lot of conjecture around what may or may not have happened and who may or may not have been there during that summer when Sharon and Roman were out of the country. Before we get
yes,
too far down that way, though, we might want to start more towards the beginning. So that house, like we said, has a fascinating history, and as most people know, it is no longer there. That beautiful country-style farmhouse was torn down in 1994, and if you want to look up on Google what's there now, it's a completely gigantic, 36,000 square foot monstrosity up on that piece of land. But the piece of land is worth talking about too, because as you went back up that little road, that little annex off of Cielo back in the 50s and 60s, there was almost nothing there. Today, there are 5 or 6 houses along that private drive, along with the new place at the top. But back then, there were only maybe 2 or 3 houses on that road. And up at the very top, where it curved around, where Sharon and Terry's house was, it had the best views of almost anywhere of the entire city of LA. It was 3.5 acres, flat, pushed up against the side of a mountain that just had breathtaking views. If you look up old pictures of that house, it was gorgeous, and you could see why people fell in love with it, because it was a lot of land, a separate garage, a huge parking lot. The main house was like 3,300 square feet, so a good sized home, plus a guest house and a pool, all on this really idyllic, bucolic piece of land that just had the best views of the city in almost anywhere. So that site was available back in the 40s, and it was I think 1942 was it the construction started for Michelle Morgan, the French actress who came over. I think it was 1942.
I don't remember. Like this, I looked at this years ago. Probably 1940s.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was started in 42 for her. She bought the lot for like
Um,
30, and then started construction. It was completed, I think, in 1944.
and
Which
also the interior was like renovated a lot over the years. If you look at
mm,
photos of her, like photography shots of
yep.
her inside the house, like you can even see with the furniture was very different.
Oh yeah,
Um,
very different.
Within those 20 years compared to like the 1960s when Terry moved in 1966, signed the lease then, and
Mm.
then moved out end of 1968 before they leased it to Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski. But uh, there was something I wanted to say. I agree. I think the ridiculousness of what it looks like now is just not good. But I will say that prior to that happening, and I think maybe karmically it was a good thing because when there's bad events taking place in buildings, whether it's crime, murder, or brothel-like conditions, um, you kind of need to introduce a destruction of that whole building to like erase its karma and its energy. And while I understand, actually, I don't understand, but while I'm aware of the fact that in the US, a lot of people are like the first runner-ups, obsessed and happy to like purchase a house where someone was murdered in, that tends to not be the case in the rest of the world. And if anything, people are
Mm.
actually very reluctant to live in a place if they feel like it's haunted, um,
Mm.
or or they feel like, you know what, a murder took place here. Like
You can
no one.
certainly understand
Yeah,
the desire to demolish the old place to rid it of that kind of energy. I could understand that being a
yeah,
being a factor. The problem is what they replaced it with, which is
yeah.
nothing like any of the other houses around there, and is completely different from the kind of the aesthetic of the canyon. It's just this big monstrosity. It's like a Spanish villa, completely different design, modernized, very much over the top. Not in
It
keeping
looks
with
like
what was there at
it
all.
looks like it's AI generated. And
Yeah, it's not, but it may as well
when I
could be.
first saw it, it kind of made me think of like Disney and Aladdin.
It's
Like, it
way
looks
over the
fake.
top. Yeah,
It
it's
looks
it looks.
fake.
But here's the creepy part, and we've talked. I think we hit on this once before. The creepy part is that, or just an interesting fact about it. And this is from several other videos too. The house that Sharon and Roman and Terry lived in at different points in the 60s was torn down in 94. But to get around the outrageous new construction costs in California, they kept, I think, 2 load-bearing walls from the original house and built around it so that they could get away with calling it a remodel, and save a bunch of money on permitting and construction costs and taxes. So even though that big monstrosity is there, there are 2 original, apparently, load-bearing walls from the house that Terry and Sharon lived in from way back in the day. Is that other people have said that's the case? It's been in some books. I can't verify it 100%, but yeah, there are still 2 original walls within that new house. Plus, there's apparently part of the old kitchen floor in a crawl space under
Yeah.
that is the original like linoleum from when the house was lived in the 70s and 80s, maybe even older. So there are still parts. As much as the developer, his name was Alvin Weintraub, who bought it from Rudy Altobelli in the late 80s, wanted to give the impression that they completely got rid of everything related to the crimes. There are still parts of that original house present within that
That
new.
could be a good thing or a double-edged sword, because I don't know if you remember this, but remember when we were talking about how there was some freak that was selling like the fireplace shit, like marbles
Yeah,
or rocks from the fireplace shit? Like,
yeah,
why would anyone want to purchase that? If that's associated with like the fire, which by the way, I don't want to even get into this or discuss this or make it a point, but this fireplace like was in the living room. It was literally probably like one of the last few things that the people who died last night,
yeah,
that night, saw, like one of the last
yeah.
few things. Why would you want to buy something that's so close to the crime that took place? And also there was this other freak show who I believe goes by the name Marilyn Manson. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
the guy, um who bought the fucking door. Guys, we shouldn't be cursing, but like we're not getting monetized, so it's fine.
Yeah, no, okay.
Like,
That we're getting
bought
kind
the
of
door
ahead of
of Cielo
ourselves. We're getting that's like the end of the house. We'll get to that. We're getting kind of way ahead of ourselves. So if we go back just a little bit and try to keep like a chronological order, we'll get to
Okay,
all because
yeah,
it is an
sure.
interesting story.
Okay, sure,
Um,
go. Yeah.
you may remember this better than I did, but so when Michelle Morgan, who was a French actress, worked in the U.S. during World War II, didn't quite. She was very successful in France, but she came here, did some movies with Frank Sinatra, did okay, but didn't achieve the level of stardom that she thought she might. So when the war was over, World War II, she sold the house and went back to France. Now, who bought it after that? I don't know. It gets a little bit hazy, the line of ownership of that house until Rudy Altobelli.
There were a
Um,
few years where we didn't know who it was. Apparently, I think
right,
it was a doctor
right.
and his wife.
Dr. Hartley or something was his name, right? That was in your video, I think.
Yeah, it was him and
Hartley
his
was
wife.
his
I
name.
believe after him, if it was either like before Terry and after Lillian Gish, or like before, I don't know if Lillian Gish moved like after this doctor, but there were a few tenants for maybe 2 to 3 years where we didn't
That's
know.
right. The historical record's pretty hazy. And Tina has a really good video from a few years ago called "The History of Cielo Drive," which has a lot of views, and it gets into the particulars of this. And
I
yeah, there isn't.
think it's actually kind of freaking me out because like I'm getting like a lot of random comments. I've been getting a lot of random comments in the last few days on that video, and I'm just like, are people discovering this now? And also
It's
like I
got like 25,000 or something. It's a lot. So for this
like I
is
can't watch that video because it's like my voiceover. It's like my voice, and like I can't listen to that
oh come
shit.
on, man. There's nothing wrong with it.
No, I can't listen to that shit. So like,
It's a
please,
no. Actually it's a good
like,
video. It's
guys,
very
just
informative.
like write, just add Tina Kilberg on the search engine on Twitter and just write history of 10050
Yep.
Cielo Drive and just read my thread because I have notes, I have images, and it's much easier to pace
Watch
through.
the video. It's a good video. Don't listen to her. It's a
What?
good it's a good video. But yeah,
It's
that was the point you made there is that the
honestly, I
ownership.
can't hear my voice.
Oh, come on, man. The ownership legacy is kind of hazy in that era. But then the talent agent Rudy Altobelli bought, I think 1963, wasn't it? The same
Maybe.
year Jay bought his house on Easton down at the bottom of Benedict Canyon. So
Yes.
Rudy Altobelli bought it, and I think it was 1963, and then he owned it, even though he didn't live in the main house. He lived in the guest house behind the pool. He owned that house straight through to like 1988. So, and then he lived in it, the main house, from like 60 or like 70 to 88. So like 18 years. So he owned it a long time.
Yeah,
And
and he
that
was
was when
alone.
he leased it. Yeah,
You need to remember this. Before the house was destroyed and deconstructed in 1994, after the murders, Olivia Hussey briefly lived there.
that's correct. Yeah.
But that's only because she was one of Rudy's clients. Like
And
she was,
I think she also recently died not long ago. Um,
yeah.
she said it never bothered her to live there because houses in England tended to be haunted a lot, and it was just kind of part of life there, so it didn't bother her. But by that time, the house had also been outfitted with a lot of security measures, a new gate. They had a panic button like under a desk that went right to the Beverly Hills Police Department. So she also said, like, this is the safest house in California
And
because of
you
all.
have to bear in mind, yeah, and you have to bear in mind that like she also, no one would have lived there, and then Rudy lived there, and he lived there for 20 years in isolation. So like
Mm,
you can already see that no matter how beautiful the house was, no one was living there. It was abandoned. Like the energy was where everyone felt so weird about it. So the fact that it got deconstructed, I don't like what it got turned into. I agree with Tim on
yeah.
that, but maybe it was good. But also like that's really funny how like I didn't know that about the haunted houses in London and stuff. Like
Mm.
you know
That
what's
was
really
something she had said in some interview.
the
That,
funniest thing about all of this is that when people start saying like I'm not going to openly discuss esoteric subjects because I I mean, firstly, I don't trust most psychics. I do believe a lot of people have intuition, but I also believe a lot of people are lying and they're frauds. And I believe a person that truly is interested in the spiritual aspects knows that this is such a serious subject. It's such a heavy subject. And if a person is not open to it, you just know early on to not have these discussions with people who do not believe in that sort of thing. That's the first thing. And then secondly, and you wouldn't be trying to like make money out of this. Like you
mhm,
would be more serious. Like people who are like into that, they don't make a show and televise
yeah.
this talk. But what I find funny is the idea or the concept of a house being haunted because why on like spirits don't bother people. Why would a spirit bother
Well, and
you?
there were tales of spirits, quote unquote,
Spirits
haunting
don't
that
bother
property for
people.
years.
Humans bother people.
You know, but that always has kind of been associated with that. I mean, in between the ownership of that house, many famous people stayed there or rented it for a while. Like you said, Henry Fonda, Cary Grant, Diane Cannon, Katharine Hepburn stayed there at some point for a
Yeah, and
while. I mean, a lot
and
of
it's
famous
the
people
energy of
stayed there.
these people that yeah, and it's the energy of these people that stayed and
And
resonated
then
with it.
Terry, so with the part we kind of the heart of the story for us is kind of when Terry Melcher moves in, which would have been early '66, right? He leased it from Rudy Altobelli, the talent manager, who lived
Knowing
in the
it-
guest house.
I know this because I was rewriting the first episode maybe like 3 months ago, and I kind of had to establish that scene more clearly.
Mm,
I'm not working on the script currently, but like I know spring of '66 was when it took place.
yep. And then shortly after that, Mark Lindsay moved in, and they were roommates for quite a while. And just I pulled this record again just for this discussion. Um, I showed this in one other video, but this is probably the most famous Paul Revere and the Raiders record. This is Spirit of '67. This was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, this record. And this was made and recorded when Terry and Mark Lindsay were roommates at Cielo Drive during the recorded '66, released in '67. So that was the time period when they were roommates there before.
Well, I
Uh,
don't think they were roommates. I don't think they were sleeping in the same room, but
no, no, they shared the house. Roommates
yeah, yeah.
in the U.S. that means like just someone who shares a house with you.
Oh, fair.
Uh,
So
so yeah,
not
this is
flatmates. Well, actually, it's
no,
not an apartment. It's
yeah,
a
it's like flatmates kind of thing, but just somebody who shares a house with you
yeah.
is what you call a roommate. And so they shared that property for a while. And Mark Lindsay has gone on record saying there were stories of them feeling uneasy about that. But
Yes.
yeah, this is Tina's billboard from her research time. Yeah, she's got all kinds of cool pictures on there.
This is actually um
That was
yeah.
an article, right? That was in a
And
magazine.
there's Terry and Terry's wait, where's the woman? Oh wait, where's the woman? Oh, here's the woman. Wait, see that woman? That was their cook, their chef.
I can't see that real well. Okay, yeah, yeah. This was a spread from a magazine
Later
back in like
English
'66.
housekeeper cook Leslie. She's out of sight. In
Ah,
fact,
far
we're
out.
going to, Mark and I wrote a song for her. Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, and a lot of
Um,
this, the songs on a lot of this record, some of them were written at that property too, on the piano that was still there when Sharon and Roman moved in years later.
and they lived with Melcher's 14 cats.
Apparently so. Yeah, there's a lot of cool pictures on that board.
Um, Terry Melcher admitted that Charles Tex Watson came to Cielo Drive once to borrow a car from Terry. Allegedly, Terry may have loaned or given him money. Um, this is the thing that I want to ask you if you've come across this. Mark Lindsay recalls a 1968 memory of Charles Manson at the Cielo Drive home. I walked into the kitchen to get a drink, and there was this
Yes,
guy
yeah, that's a pretty well-known story.
squatting against the refrigerator on the floor, wearing this work shirt and jeans and looking really scruffy. I said, "Excuse me," and tried to open the door, but he wouldn't move. He was just like a doorstop and stared right ahead. After trying a few times, I walked into the other room and said, "Hey, who's the weird dude in the kitchen?" And someone said, "Oh, that's just Charlie. He's okay." Um,
Yeah, that story's appeared in a few places. If you show that board like one more time, there's a lot of cool pictures on there. Like toward the bottom. Yeah, what's the ones on the bottom there? That's
it's
Terry and Candace. Yeah,
yeah.
those
And
very well have been.
description: Terry and his girlfriend looked like print ads for expensive liquors and leisure vacations. Leisure. Hmm. Yeah, I like that. I also like them hanging out and stuff.
Yeah, those are cool pictures, and that was in the driveway there. Those pictures of that property.
And what you mentioned in terms of the
That's
sound,
the living room. Yep.
Mark Lindsay recounted times when the sound system would inexplicably turn itself on, sometimes in the middle of the night when Terry and Candace were sleeping. Mark claimed that Terry started taking downers during the day, not just at night, to sleep, and that Mark himself put a 44 Magnum under his pillow every night. And mind you, this was like before the crimes, before
Yeah. No.
everyone
This
slept.
there's always been a weird energy associated with that place.
So yeah,
That's Rudy there, right? Is that Rudy's picture right there in the middle? Yeah,
yes.
that's
The
the
reason
owner we're
why,
talking about at this
yeah,
time.
the reason
He,
why I mentioned him was because after he lived at Cielo for about a month, Rudy Altobelli visited Mark and Terry and told them the home was haunted by a woman who killed herself in the house. After learning that her husband had cheated on her, he told Mark and Terry to watch out for the spirit of the jealous woman. And Mark's words, he said that although the femme fatale spirit still lingered, she probably wouldn't bother two guys, although she didn't seem to tolerate beautiful women very well. And then Rudy would say, as long as you don't let your girlfriend stay over too long, you should be okay.
mm,
So what's interesting is that two things. The first thing is that I kind of tried to connect the dots, like in terms of what this could have meant. So Mark noticed strange events when Candace was around. I don't know if he was influenced by this discussion with Rudy, but convinced a spirit was chasing Candace so she would leave, saw
mm,
Candace canoodling with Terry on the couch, and was certain that she would stay so Mark moved out.
mm,
And one night went to get a drink from the fridge and found a man sitting on the kitchen floor. Someone said, "Oh, that's just Charlie," the story I mentioned earlier. Terry and Candace's relationship was not always perfect. Would this be affected by the energy of the home? I don't know. Melcher was
mm.
often unfaithful, went out and met girls with Dennis and Greg, and allegedly involved with like other girls. So like, look, I think I did a hypnosis session. Like I basically, this is what I did. I transported myself to Cielo Drive and I did a self hypnosis session and kind of wanted to examine the events that took place. So when I did, I saw that the boys, Terry and Mark, they didn't believe Rudy's warning. They didn't believe in spirits. They didn't believe in any of that. They
Mm.
just believed that he was a very strict, strange, peculiar person. And also, he was an openly gay talent manager at a time where people weren't openly gay. So they
Right.
just had the impression, Terry especially, he didn't believe in that sort of discussion with spirits. So he believed at the time that he was just saying those things to him and Mark so they wouldn't have parties and wouldn't bring girls over. That was their
Could
take.
be. It's very possible. And again, given the fact that we're talking 60 plus years ago, it's difficult to know exactly what happened. Um, but yeah, Terry was there. Terry lived there with Mark for a while, and then he moved out because he felt like a third wheel because Candice Bergen was there a lot. And then the two of them lived there for probably, what, another year and a half until they abruptly left in the, I think it was the late 68 or early 69 because the wackos in the family were starting to get a little too close. Not that we're making this all about them, but they are a part of the story. The point we're trying to hammer home is there's this whole other history of this place long before that and after it that's really interesting too.
Yeah.
So Terry and Candace lived there for a while themselves, and it did have the reputation as a party house because he was having music luminaries and big shots and Hollywood people there quite a bit to party before Sharon or Roman had anything to do with that place. So that it does have that history there of that. And Rudy, the owner, was mostly just living in the back guest house because he didn't need the whole space of the 33,000 square foot main house. So Terry and Candace, because of the imminent threats apparently from the family, they abruptly left. And then the house went unleased for like a month or so, I think, as they were trying to find new tenants. And the realtor that hooked Sharon and Roman up with that property, I think, is maybe still alive. She's done some interviews. I can't remember what her name is, but she tells an interesting story about how Altabelli did not want to lease the property to Roman and Sharon because he had a bad feeling about it. And he wouldn't do it, wouldn't cave. And she finally convinced him it was going to be okay. And interestingly enough, just for historical reference on how much money is worth now, they paid $1,200 a month for that house. Sharon and Roman in 1969. The
Yeah.
equivalent of what maybe like 10, 11,000 today, which even by
Like apparently like Terry with Candace like spent a lot of money on like flowers,
mm,
like 12 to 15,000
that I don't
dollars.
that you've said that could be. I don't know. I never read that anywhere else, but it's possible.
I heard it on a podcast.
Oh, maybe. Again, it's hard to know because we're so far
Seems
removed.
an accurate podcast. Like the woman was a pretty good researcher, Karina Longworth.
Okay,
Karina
it's
Longworth,
possible then. Yeah.
that's her name.
So
Yeah.
Terry moves out. He goes to Malibu because he's at this point he's a little scared. Without going into all the details, because if you want to know that stuff, like we always say, it's out there. If you want to look into that, and
People
then
aren't going to find it. People aren't going to find it. So let's give them the cliff notes. The shortcut is that this is what happened. Terry was at a party with Dennis Wilson. Dennis Wilson is a beach boy. He's the beach boy that Charles Manson befriended to get close to all these music people because Charles Manson wanted to be a musician.
correct.
So they're at a party. They're at a house party. Dennis drives Terry home. Manson is
Oh
sitting in
yeah,
the back of the car. He drops Terry off. This is in 1968. He
yep.
drops Terry off at Cielo Drive. Terry very evidently does not invite them in. So he never had a good feeling about Charles. So Dennis and Charlie, who's in the back of the car, they drive off. And Terry waits for them to drive off before he enters the house.
Yep.
After some time, he confides in his mother, Doris Day, who he trusts very much, and they have a very close relationship. Doris Day does not like the sound of Charles Manson one bit. She tells her son, "You are moving out of that house," because, like Terry told her, like he knows where I live.
Yep.
So she said, "You're moving out of that house." Terry urged Candace, and she's given an interview saying that he just decided all of a sudden, we have to move out. Let's move out. And he wasn't exactly telling me why. So they briefly moved to Doris's beach house. So we know that there's recorded evidence of Terry Melcher and Sharon Tate speaking over the telephone when she was in London with Roman. And she was asking him about the lease. And they spoke on the phone maybe 3 times, I believe.
Okay, maybe it's hard to find much documented evidence about to what extent they interacted, but apparently, yeah, they did eventually talk on the phone about
If
them.
it wasn't in Helter Skelter, it was in one of the other books. So yeah. I mean, look, I'm like a great researcher. So it's like I'm not gonna get out of my way to prove to people where I got which source from because I know nobody does that shit. So
No,
like, and I'm going to make a mistake because like it looks bad on me to like make a mistake. So like I'm not
No,
going to make a
watch the
mistake.
first video that she did. History of it's
No,
worth it. Don't listen.
guys, stay on this video because like Tim, like you know what? No, you know what, Tim? We're gonna make 5 videos on this, and they won't have to watch that old video anymore because
The
like you
old
have a lot.
video is good. It's worth watching. It's definitely worth watching. Watch this too, but that's a
Rather
good
you guys read the thread, just write Tina Kilberg on Twitter and history of Cielo Drive, and you'll find it. So of 10050 Cielo Drive. So here's the thing, though. In terms of the house party, something that I was very curious about always was that, and like I'm sure Tim would agree as well, is that, and you can let me know if not, it's that there's not a lot of recorded evidence of interactions between Terry Melcher and Sharon Tate.
No.
And you would think there would be because there's photos. I mean, Candice Bergen got invited to Sharon Tate's wedding. Um,
Oh, that's
and
right. Yeah.
also house parties. We know that Sharon and Roman went to house parties at Cielo before they moved there. So who was staying at the house for 3 years before Sharon and Roman moved in? Terry Melcher. So they knew of each other. And what I was interested in was trying to explore their relationship through intuitive research, again through hypnosis. And like the only thing I captured was that in life, Terry and Sharon were not very close. They avoided each other because she was very timid and intimidated by him.
Well, and he kept his circle deliberately small, right?
Well, also, she circulated in crowds and he kept her at a distance. And this makes sense because Terry is like a very shrewd, strong character and person.
He
And
knew back
his
then that people wanted
his
something
mother
from him because he was he
Yeah.
was the son of a
And his
movie
mother
star.
was always say, yes. And smart, strong individuals do not need to gamble with like a lot of friends and a lot of like groups and stuff. They're very secure in standing their ground. They don't need to mingle the
Well,
way.
he knew people always would want something from him because he was a record
Yes.
producer. And at
Yeah.
that time when it was free and easy and there wasn't a lot of security between famous people and the public, he knew that, and he probably learned that from Doris Day, like keep people at a distance until you know they're okay. Don't have a big circle
Yeah.
because being who you are, people are going to want something from you all the time, as evidenced by the Manson idiots. People wanted something from him all the time, so he kept his circle small, which was wise.
Well, not just Manson. I mean, any person in this industry, which is why I wanted to say the following point that I saw in hypnosis is that like everyone, that's why all these people were going to these parties. They weren't there to make friends, they were there to network. And apparently, Terry would invite Roman and Sharon and stuff to house parties at Cielo, and he tried to approach Sharon and Roman so he could help. So Roman could help Candace possibly with acting, but apparently Sharon and Roman avoided Terry, and apparently Roman was jealous of Terry. And the other thing that I tried to capture, which I saw in hypnosis, was that in the summer of 1968, there was a restaurant in South Kensington where Terry sat at a table next to Roman and Sharon, but they didn't speak; they just waved.
That's very possible. We know they both spent time there quite a
Yeah,
bit, actually.
especially
So,
in '68.
mm,
And yeah, because Terry was working with musicians and traveling to London a lot.
yeah, we
Back
know
then.
that Sharon was there a lot because she loved London for one thing, was working over there a lot, and Roman had ties there too. So they were going. That makes sense. Totally possible.
Yeah. And then
And then
lastly, like Terry overall, Sharon couldn't be approached because he was always seeing her with two men, Jay and Roman. So he didn't know what was going on. And a lot of people were very confused when they saw that trio because they were like, oh, that's her ex-boyfriend, but that's
it
her.
was definitely an odd kind of, as
So she
close as they
wasn't
were.
an
It
approach
was
her.
it was kind of an odd pairing or group of three people there. That's for sure. But I think it was Deborah or Sharon's sister Patty, the youngest one, who gave an interview once that said because the Tate family moved around so much because of Paul Tate's job, he was in
Yeah.
Army intelligence, so he was all over the world all the time.
Yeah.
Her rationale for that was that when people came into their lives that they valued, they didn't just want to toss them away because it was so hard for them to make friends with people because they were always moving as kids. So when Jay came into their orbit, even though he had broken up with Sharon, they were still very good friends. They still saw a lot of good things in each other. So she kept him close and vice
Yeah.
versa. So according to Patty, I think it was Patty, she said they were just very hesitant to
It was
discard
very,
people
yeah. Patty
because
was
they
very,
moved so much, which could make sense as well. So when we get to the point where, and that's all very interesting, we haven't discussed, well, we've discussed that part of it privately, but it's good to put that out there because the historical record, starting from about now, is pretty sketchy in terms of what actually happened at that house when the dark stuff happened. So Sharon and Roman move in early February. They sign the lease. They're in there. They live together there for about a month, um, and then they have that housewarming party, which I think took place on March 16th, 1969. That's pretty well documented because there were a lot of Hollywood big shots and movie luminaries and music people there. And then Roman went off to South America for a film festival. Sharon was there like another month and a half, and then she went over to join him and start work on 12 Plus One. So during that time, and I think it's in the Greg King book, he talks about how she was basically getting the house ready, settling in, buying plants, buying furniture for that house. And it was a pretty mellow time in her life before she went off to make what was her last movie. It's the stuff that happened in their absence that I think is where a lot of the problems really started. Because they were gone Roman never came back to that house to live. Uh, he came back after the crimes, but he never lived there again. Yeah, those are nice. Those are good pictures. And while this is another kind of shot, a little harder to see. This is a black and white picture of pretty much that same angle.
slow. This is Michelle Morgan, the first tenant.
Yeah, that's a good, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And this is the weird girl that I was talking about.
Lillian Gish.
Yes.
Yeah, she was after her a while. This is the view, I don't know how well this shows up on camera. This is the view of the pool going towards, okay, so Sharon's bedroom, the master bedroom right here of the house. This is the mountain back here that it was nestled up against. The picture of Sharon I put in there just for aesthetic reasons, but here's the pool. There's the door to the master bedroom. And then over here is the front yard. It was a beautiful property. I mean, there was nothing like it in the city. Despite what would happen there later and tarnish the image of it forever, it was a beautiful place.
Yeah, these are really old as well. I can't believe
They're really old.
Michelle was right there. Michelle and Lillian, like the previous tenants, but because I did these like 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, this is as we've said before, this is an ongoing project for Tina and me. She started this before we met. She told me
because I don't have a writing team.
You don't need a writing team. You can do it. You already did half of it, for Christ's sake. Oh my God.
No, oh my God, I'm totally redoing what I did. I did like the first version of half of it. I'm now working, well, I'm not working on it right now, but like I need to work through the second version of half of it. So I haven't even done all of it, and I haven't even done anyway, it's just too stressful. Like I'm not talking about this. Like I don't deserve this. Like I deserve a writer's team of people.
You can do it. You can
I deserve to be like one of those batshit dumbass A-listers who are just like they just get big and they have no original idea.
No, you will get this done. The framework is there. I swear to God.
I made my millions, my 3 millions from this Netflix show or whatever, got them big. They can just be like, I'm going to serve as a producer on this. And then they can just like hire a writer and be like, so I want to do this idea and do this and do that. And then they just get it made.
They're not going to write it as well as you could write it. Come on. It's not going to be written as well as you could write it, or you're in charge of the team.
Other people doing this for me. Like I can't do.
No, it's not going to be as good. You should still be in charge of it. This is a whole other argument. We're going to go off on a wild ass tangent here.
Yeah, but I hate doing everything myself. Like I can't do everything myself.
You won't have to do everything yourself, just the framework. Then it'll be taken over by production.
Exactly.
But you need the framework. That's all, which you already mostly.
I do need a framework.
And it's good. It's good. Just you're going to be okay. If I were there, I would help you with it. Whatever, to whatever extent I could.
We would chill like on my. It would be great. Like we'd bring Teresa, and we'd bring like some of my friends as well. Like any friends that I have who produced or directed anything, and I'll just literally get all of you guys on this table, and then we can just chat and talk about this screenplay and do it.
that one day that will happen.
It would
One
be
day we'll
great. Yeah, it would be
back to
great.
segueing back to the summer of '69 now in this house. So I think, and again, you've mentioned this in your other video and research, the problems really started when they were away, when Abigail and Wojtek moved in, kind of subleased that house, which Altabelli was not happy with. That was a violation of the lease. Actually, it was supposed to be a single, what they call a single family rental, which was one group of people living there or one couple. They didn't get permission to have Abigail and Wojtek move in there and take the place over. Altabelli was not happy about that. So and there's plenty of documentation about what may or may not have happened in Sharon and Roman's absence at that house. Safe to say is most of it was not good. That's when kind of the darker elements of LA counterculture may have gotten a real foothold into that place in their absence. Pick Dawson, Billy Doyle, those shady kind of satellite characters that were involved in the drug
Very
trade.
strange people.
Yeah, there's not much out there about them. They allegedly were supplying MDA to Wojtek. It's a
Yeah, I
very
I
convoluted
very
story.
briefly explored Pick Dawson and that other loser Billy Doyle. Apparently, they were
There's
both
not much out there.
of
There's
Cass
not much
Elliot.
out there.
Mama Cass, I'm so sorry that you were so insecure and hated yourself so much to have these two
I don't think
losers.
she hated us. She was just lonely. She
Yeah, but
wanted a husband or a boyfriend, and
yeah,
just
but out of all these losers, she picked these two drug dealers to be her boyfriends. Like, no, no, no. The only thing that
she was a lonely woman at that time of her life, and I think they showed her some attention. And she was social anyway, and very loving and welcoming. So you just welcome them into the circle. I mean, there's even a very famous picture of a barbecue at Cass's house on the other side of Laurel Canyon, where it's like Eric Clapton visiting the U.S. for the first time. Joni Mitchell's there, Mickey Dolenz from the Monkees, David Crosby,
I've never seen
and
this
then
song.
at the end of this picture, they're all sitting on this rock bench. At the very end of the picture is Pick Dawson. So like this
Oh, you're
miscreant.
right.
You find it?
Yes, and
That's a
apparently there's.
very famous photo shoot, and there's all these big shots,
I
musicians.
have a question. Is that a baby in the middle?
That was Cass's daughter. Yeah,
Okay, is
Owen.
that? I thought
She's
it
still
was
alive.
like a haunted doll.
No, no, that was her baby. That's her daughter.
Doll.
But at the end of that picture is Pick
I'm gonna
Dawson, the
Google
drug
it.
dealer, who really has no business mingling with these people that were, big shots in their industry. But that was the time. It was too easy for the darker parts of the culture to get close to famous people. And unfortunately, a lot of the problems happened around that time. And again, the specifics are really hard to narrow down or to quantify because there isn't a lot of documentation as to just what went down during that summer they
It's
were
like a
gone.
haunted doll.
That's the
It
one.
looks
Yep.
looks like a
Yep.
tortured, scary doll.
No, that's her daughter. That's her daughter. But
You guys, this looks
in
like a
that
haunted
picture,
doll.
it might be hard to see, but Eric Clapton's in that picture. All these music big shots, and then Pick Dawson at the far left side. Why is he there?
Well,
You know,
you know what? This is what I've gathered from Pick Dawson and Billy Doyle. I was, I think I tried to see if I could add them into a storyline, but there really was no storyline.
no, yeah,
Okay.
that's them again. Or yeah,
So they were like briefly questioned as to being suspects because they
they
were
were
interested
initially,
in
yeah.
shady. Mama Cass had a lot of house parties, like obviously like drugs and stuff. Like this was like the 60s, like not to be confused with the Diddy parties. I hate to even reference that. I don't even want to be associated with that
No,
word.
that's if we can take the debauchery up a level, that's that. But so
So
we know that stuff went on there that Sharon didn't approve of because when she got back, the middle of July of '69 from Europe after making her movie,
she had to deal
she
with this too.
yeah, she told her mother, Doris, when she got home that she was very upset about what had apparently been happening there the summer she was away because
Because
people
it
were hanging
was
around she didn't know. There were sketchy people there. Wojtek and
because
Abigail were doing
Tate
drugs. It
and
was just
Abigail were house sitting the house and they were having a lot of parties and inviting a lot of people. So
that's yeah. Basically, if you want to narrow it down, that's probably what happened. We also know that, and this was approved. Jay Sebring had an investors meeting there for Sebring International while Roman and Sharon were, but he got permission for them to do that. He had a group of people there at that house that summer while they were away to discuss possibly investing in his company.
As
So
he
that
right
also,
have, because it wasn't his house, and
mm,
there's no reason, you have no right to really take advantage of someone, no matter how close you are to them. So that gesture in itself, considering how close Jay was to Sharon, and I guess by association Roman, just you just see the massive difference in terms of respect. How Jay still asked their permission. Could
yeah.
I
Oh,
have
that
the
was approved of, and that's
compared
done.
to
He got
Wojtek,
permission to
really
do it.
had nothing. Well, Wojtek came from Poland. He was Roman's friend from Poland because they worked on a film like in the early 60s. He befriended this rich socialite. I don't remember where Abigail was from. Was she from New York? I don't
San
remember where she
Francisco. Yeah,
Yeah,
she
but
was
she
San
worked in New York.
Francisco royalty because that's where the Folgers Coffee Company was headquartered.
Yeah, but
She
she
went.
worked in New York.
She lived in New York too. Yeah, she went back a couple times. She
And then
worked in New York.
yeah. So like he was basically living off of her money. He had
Yeah,
nothing
that's
to
the
do
story.
in the US. Like he had nothing to do in the US. He was bored, so he dealt drugs.
Again, and
And there
this
was
is and that's the mainstream story, and there's nothing really out there to discount that. I think, not to disparage someone who's died, but I think a lot of the problems happened with the people that he or Abigail brought into their orbit at that property in the absence of Sharon and Roman. That's where a lot of problems, I think, really started. But again, it's a lot of conjecture because this far removed, we just don't know. It's another part of the history of that house. So moving on, when she returned, she was very pregnant, very much getting ready to settle into that house to have her baby. The family watched the moon landing there. That's been a well documented event that took place there. And moving beyond what happened, because we're not going to dwell on that. If anybody wants to know about that, they can look it up in many places on the internet. Um, and then after that is what you like when you said when Olivia Hussey moved in shortly after and lived there just briefly. And then Altabelli himself moved in and stayed there for 20 years without incident, basically. Um, he was kind of a weird guy. He gave interviews later in life about it, said he loved the property. And
yeah, it was
one
very
interview, he said,
lonely. Yeah.
yeah, he was a lonely guy, odd guy. At one point, he did say that I think selling that house was the biggest mistake he ever made. And the a weird, just to show how connected everything was, and I may have mentioned this in an earlier one. So he sold that house, Altobelli, and I think it was 1988 or 89. The real estate agent that brokered the sale was Jacobson's son. And Greg Jacobson was Terry Melcher and Dennis Wilson's running buddy back in the 60s. So I was like, everybody knew everybody back then. It's
So
weird
wait,
how many.
Greg was connected to him how?
Greg
Oh,
Jacobson's
Terry
son,
hated Greg.
Greg Jacobson's
Terry
son.
hated everyone.
Well, yeah,
He
but
didn't like
his
anyone.
son brokered the sale for Altabelli when Altabelli sold that house in the 80s. Isn't that
That,
weird? That connection to,
yeah.
yeah, which I didn't know till recently. But yeah, his son was the
Also,
real agent who set it up.
uh, Terry Melcher. Okay, Rudy Altabelli died in 2011. He was
Mm.
81. Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
his story is kind of sad because he ended up basically broke, living in a garage apartment, and didn't have much when he died. Um, but then the house, so the developer who bought that house, I think it was Alvin Weintraub, and before they tore it down, uh,
I'm sorry.
the tail end
I'm
of that
laughing
story
to
is
myself.
weird.
I'm
Uh,
laughing to myself because I'm looking at photos of Rudy Altabelli and he's reminding me of someone, but I don't. Anyway, like I'm thinking of like I'm looking at people and I'm obviously like who could play this person, who could play that person. And I'm gonna
mm,
find a way to get it sorted. The shortcut to that answer is like IMDb Pro, where you can find people's details and ages and
sure.
man emails and lists. Like that's the shortcut. But like Rudy Altabelli reminds me of I'm not even gonna say, but no, but like Rudy was weird. Like he was a weirdo. Like no one liked him. Sharon didn't like him. Terry didn't like him because he was strict about the house and constantly checking up and being weird.
Well,
Like
and then he did some pretty awful things because when the crimes happened in the aftermath of that, obviously there was damage to the property. And
Yeah,
Altabelli
let's.
made the move. He
Yeah,
turned around. Didn't this? I think you talked about this. He turned around and sued Sharon's estate for damages to the home for like 400 grand or something. It was
and her
absurd.
dad.
And
Yeah,
then
and
Paul
her
Tate
dad.
basically told him to fuck off. And then they went to court and he got a few $1,000s. But he, yeah,
Yeah,
in the
but
immediate aftermath of that, he sued her estate, which is just awful.
yeah,
It
but
wasn't
you're
her
forgetting
fault.
that Paul Tate, Colonel Paul Tate, Sharon's father, went to the house to clean like the damages and the blood and the carpets and shit.
I think, yeah, again, it's hard to know exactly
And
what.
you're also forgetting to mention something else. Uh, when Roman, I believe, or someone brought someone to take photos to show them to psychics to
Julian Wasser, yeah, for Life
yeah,
magazine.
Julian
Yep.
Wasser, yes. And then well, that maybe is more understandable, but Rudy sued them on the grounds
Yeah.
that they were
That you
ruining
could that you
public
could have
trust.
that's got a little bit more legitimacy, but him turning around right after it happened and suing Sharon's estate for damages to the house, it wasn't her fault. I mean, that was just cold. And it was for a ridiculous amount of money. It was like $500,000 back then. So yeah,
Oh,
the thing with the photographs that has a little bit more weight, and it's kind of puzzling as to why Roman did that. But I mean, he was in such a fragile mental state at that point. Who could blame him for almost anything? Any way he acted in the wake of that. But yeah, that did happen. So after that, like Altabelli, when that was all settled, Altabelli lived there alone for about 20 years. Greg
oh,
Jacobson's son brokered the sale,
sorry.
and
This content is not available in your region, nydailynews.com.
oh,
So
probably not because it's an American.
I'll read the mini bit from like the search thing. So Cielo Drive was taken on by Sharon Tate's father Paul, according to cleaned his daughter's blood off the floor of her former home.
That I don't know if that ever happened.
It did happen. He had to clean the blood up. Like
But did he do it
in
personally? I don't.
1969.
And oddly enough, there is allegedly a manuscript that was written by Paul Tate and the head of the lieutenant who was in charge of the crime scene at Cielo Drive. I forget his name at the moment, but the lead detective. They apparently wrote a book together that was never published, and I think it was called Five Down on Cielo Drive. It
I
was
meant
never,
the detective's name.
yeah, it was never published because it was just it was a tome. It was long. It was never edited correctly and never released. But it may have been discussed in that book about that, um, the events immediately following it. So Altabelli lives there, sells to Alvin Weintraub. Greg Jacobson's son brokers the sale, which is just an odd connection. And then the last, and this is not uncommon knowledge, but the last tenant of that house was Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails, who rented the house for like a year, from like 92 to 93. And then for whatever reason, turned the living room into a recording studio and actually recorded a couple albums there. And then later on, Deborah Tate confronted him for kind of exploiting the crimes and calling the studio like the pig studio or something, just really cold and classless. And he talked about having issues staying there too, like it was a creepy environment. But funny enough, Altabelli never said he had any issues at all living there for 20 years alone. So maybe it depended upon the occupant as to what they brought out among the energy there. Hard to
Yeah,
say.
maybe in the sense that because so much shit went down, uh, people don't want to. People just wouldn't. No one would have bothered him. No one wanted to have
Well,
anything
and
to
at the end, I mean, he had a new, before the house was torn down and before the new thing was put up, a bigger gate was put up where that chain link one used to be. Anybody could have scaled that. That was nothing. But he put up a big steel gate in front of it. There's still pictures of it. You can see it. It's like a fortress gate, way high up, barbed wire at the top. That was much harder to get through. And there is an interesting story about that particular period. So we're talking like the time after Trent Reznor left and right before the house was torn down. Apparently, they had an open house there. I think this was in the Greg King book, where people were coming to look at the house to possibly buy or rent. And one of the people who came by to look at it was Jay Leno, the talk show host and comedian. Like right after he started the Tonight Show when he took over for Johnny Carson. and he came to see the house and didn't know about the house. He was looking for a place for his parents to live in LA. And he was walking around, and somebody mentioned that it was the site of the murders, and he took off out of there as fast as he could go. He's
Because
like, "No,
he's
I don't
smart.
want anything to
That's
do
what
with
a
that."
smart person does. See, that's the instinct of a smart person.
Um,
I genuinely like. I really don't get the appeal of wanting to rush and get something on the market and immediately have so many people wanting it, like a house where like a murder took place.
well, I don't think a
This is
lot of
only a
people wanted it
phenomenon. I
because
feel like this is only something that takes place in like California because no one like no one wants to be around like no like you don't want to be like I'll tell you what, this is going to sound really strange, but like I visited my friend who lives in an apartment building, and like it was my first time visiting. So
where are we talking there? Or
this is in Greece, but it's
okay,
about houses. So let's talk about houses.
okay,
I told her I was only waiting in like the corridor hallway with the other like rooms and doors and stuff. I was telling her uh, there's at least two people that have died here, an elderly woman and a man in his 40s, younger. And my friend was freaking out and she was like, "You're right. There was an old woman that literally died 6 months ago."
oh my
And she was
lord,
literally living on the floor there. And she was like, "Yes, she said, there's actually three people that have died in my building, and two people have died on this floor. A man that you mentioned because he had cancer." And she freaked out and she was like, "How do you know about this?" And I'm like, "I just felt it from you can just feel things. This doesn't mean that there's spirits roaming about. Like, let's not get this twisted. It means that a building carries energies of events that took place and stuff. I get very irritated when people are mentioning that things are haunted and there's spirits and stuff. No, there isn't. And like, if there are spirits, believe me, they are not bothering you. They're not bothering you. They're not bothering anyone. Like, people bother people. Like, let's stay away from like horror movies.
yeah,
Okay, like, you get killed by ghosts. No,
yeah, no,
humans harm other humans.
of course,
Spirits, we are to discuss spirits and the spiritual realm, which is not physical, it's not tangible as a concept. If we're going to talk about this, then you have to understand that it's a metaphysical subject, and there's no physical proof to prove that a metaphysical concept exists. So you have to see it in a completely different lens. But that's what I think happened with. I think so. That's why, like, I don't necessarily think that all the psychics in California are like seeing things, right? Because usually they're doing it in a conscious state through psychography or gadgets so they can do these ghostbuster
and also
shows.
doing it to monetize themselves or their
Yeah,
channels,
yeah.
platform. There's
I
that
mean,
aspect of it too.
it's I feel the same way I would about hypnosis being used for performative reasons and entertainment purposes on talk shows where they'll hire hypnotists and make them act like magicians and
Mhm.
snap people and put them to sleep and stuff. Like, I don't agree with that because I think that makes fun of the subject and mocks it. It's not serious. It's not responsible. So it's not useful to do that because then it's like people are testing you, and I don't think you should be put up in a spot where people are testing your intuition or your ability. But you can sense these things because like I'm not a ghostbuster.
It is
I'm
a
not
good term for them, though. The
I'm not
people
a
that
psychic banging on people's doors in LA and being like, I'm seeing your relative in front of me, which by the way, I have very mixed views. Actually, no, I have very clear views about that, which is what Tyler Henry does, which I disagree with. First of all, I don't like the fact that it's being filmed, being shared on air, being discussed without the person being aware of it. I don't like seeing all these people crying about their relatives. Like, I don't like seeing that. I think that sort of discussion is private, it's personal, and I think you have to talk to enough people to kind of realize who's full on honest and who's not. And um I think one thing I will agree with maybe is that it is possible to feel events taking place because an environment carries the energy of that place. Like, I believe David Oman is a very intuitive man, and I believe that he can feel the unsettling nature of a few things
Mhm.
in a place, which is why it's really good to, when you even move into an apartment, moving away from the haunted house idea. Even when you're moving into apartments, it's good to know, like, when was this apartment built? Is it a modern building? Are these modern apartments? Who has lived here before? Like, it's good to, I don't know, it's good to look into that sort of thing.
No, and those are all good points, and you're far more well versed in that aspect of this than I am. But to your point, yeah, that there's long been at least associated with that part, that road and that part of LA. David has also said, completely independent of what happened there in 1969. There's an elevated level of energy there that can't really be explained. Uh,
And I
so,
believe that because it's on a mountain. It's like there's a
mm.
lot of energy in that region.
Well, and
Um,
there's some geological and evidence and things that can't be disputed that kind of proves that. So it's a very intriguing, mystifying part of the city.
and it's
And
a place that Tim and Tina will visit and explore.
yeah, the road is still there. The house
Yeah.
is long gone, of course, and the big monstrosity is there now. But the road, you
Oh,
can still
I
walk
want
up
to
the
visit
road, drive
David's
up the road.
place. Like,
People still.
I want to visit David's place. Like, yeah, I want to
Well,
visit
that's
his house.
yeah. This is actually part one of this. So within the next few weeks, I'm not sure again when we'll get to be on again. Hopefully within a few weeks or a couple of weeks, we hope
Maybe
to
two
have a
weeks.
guest on with us
Yes.
to talk more about
Yeah.
this subject, the house, the history of the house, his connection to the area, and the story of it. So rather than give it away, we hope to reach out to that person and have him join us for part two, discussing Cielo Drive 10050, the history of the area and his
And by the
experience.
way, Tim, I didn't contact the other two people that we mentioned we could have brought on.
Oh, that's okay. That's why
Maybe you
there's
could,
a part two and whatever.
like, I can draft an email, but I would much rather you draft an email for me on my
We can
behalf.
we can get into that. We hope it'll happen. We're
I'm
not
just
sure.
embarrassed for some reason. I don't know why.
We
I
think
don't
we think
know.
for next time on this, we have a pretty good shot at getting a guest to join us, which would be really fun.
Also, like, yeah, and also these discussions are very long, so thank you to anyone who's listening, and,
Mm.
like, thank you very much. I think that's probably why, like, I don't want to send them a video and be like, "Hi, we talked about Jay. Would you guys like to come on and
Oh yeah,
talk?"
no. That's
They're really nice guys. They're really nice guys. These are, like, really really nice guys. I really love them both.
mm.
Um, Jay's nephew and Jay's protege, the guy that worked with Jay, like, both very nice guys. And I but I'm embarrassed to send them, like, an hour long video. I don't want them to be confused as
No,
to,
that's
no,
something we
they
should
see
probably
me as
talk about privately.
actually, yeah, you know what, Tim? I'm really happy to talk with them privately.
Just one before thing I wanted to show. This is a cool. It's hard to see. This is a rare kind of obscure picture of Sharon at Cielo. This is full hippie chick mode. This was taken. I don't know how well this is going to show up on there.
This was taken before the 70s.
This was taken on at
Talk
Cielo when
about a
she got back.
fashion forecaster.
Yeah, this was like in the yard, I think, of Cielo when she got back that summer. Just a
Yeah.
really great shot of Sharon. I mean, she never took a bad picture, but this is one you don't see a whole lot. And this was when she returned. That I believe it was the summer she got back from making 12 plus one and was living back at Cielo. So yeah, just a
Yeah.
cool picture of Sharon. Um, yeah, so there are some people we do want to reach out to. Along one thing to mention along with that is that J. Sebring's nephew, Anthony D. Maria, and Marshall Terrell, Steve McQueen's biographer, are putting out a book. Some of you may have heard about this. It's a companion book to Cutting to the Truth, a documentary that we talked a lot about during our video on Jay. That book is coming out, I think it's July 25th in the United States. Beyond anywhere else, I'm not sure. There's a Kindle version you can get on Amazon that'll come out on that day. I don't know if that translates internationally. The place we're not affiliated with it in any way. We don't get anything from it, but just being fans of Jay's, that book should be fantastic. And that, as far as I can tell, the only place to get a hard copy of it is at geniusbookpublishing.com. GENIUS bookpublishing.com. You can get you can order the book, which is going to allegedly, I think, coming out the 25th or at the end of July. So I'll be getting one of those for sure. It should be full of really good information that we can talk about possibly in the future.
Me
So
too,
that
but I don't think I'll be ordering it from Amazon because I tried to reorder the Greg King's book, which I lost. You know, the
I
one I
don't
bought.
think you can get a hard copy on Amazon. It's just the Kindle.
I so I went on Amazon and it
Mhm.
wouldn't ship to Greece, and I
Okay.
had to go on some alternative and order it from Germany or have it shipped from Germany, and it
Are
just got
are you talking about the J book or the Greg King book?
no, the Greg King book.
Oh, you did find one. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Did you get it yet?
So I ordered it, so it's coming, but
Okay.
I had to order it through like Germany or like something
Okay.
with Amazon.
It's
And I
hard to
actually
find. That book is long out of print. I
I
think it
actually
was
had to get
printed
some
once.
assistance to get that sorted. So so someone else actually ordered it on my behalf. I didn't do it, but I couldn't do it by myself because I just
Okay.
struggled. So I just sent it
It's
over.
hard to find here too. There aren't a lot of
Someone
copies of
to
it
deal with
around.
it on my behalf because I don't know what it is. I taxes, whatever. Like I don't know what it is, but like Amazon, you got to sort your shit out because like European buyers are not going to be buying. Okay, let's just leave it at that. It's just very inconvenient prices. So anyway, I'm gonna look forward to that book. It's just that I don't know if I struggle, if I see that I can't get it from Amazon, I'll just get it from somewhere else.
I think if you the J book, I think if you order it from Genius Book Publishing, they will ship it internationally, and that's good to
That's
know.
what I'm gonna do.
So just
That's what I'm gonna do.
geniusbookpublishing.com. I sent you the link on privately on Instagram. As
Thank you
far as I
very
can
much.
tell, that's the only place to get a physical copy of that book. But I
Thank you
think
very much. Yeah.
if you have trouble, let me know. I'll order one for you. But I think you can get what Sharon
Oh no, it's fine.
agreed.
It's fine. Thank you. So I'll save the link. And you know what? Finally, like you know what, guys, if you're gonna buy a book, like buy Jay's nephew's book because like
Yeah,
he's not gonna. Do you get what I mean? Like he's not gonna make it like it's gonna come from a good place and he's
yep.
gonna share stories and stuff. And I'm excited
Mhm.
to like read these stories because it's just like
He will be,
constant
I'm sure, setting
storyline.
a lot
Yeah,
of things right in this book, like he did in the documentary. Because
yeah.
again, this is his family. This is his uncle. These are, this is his family's been living with this trauma for almost 6 decades now, and his goal is, and he's done a couple of YouTube interviews and things about it leading up to this. Very articulate, very passionate spokesman for the victims and his family. He really, I think, just wants to set the record straight, and at least to as far as his uncle goes, to prove that Jay was not this drug dealing degenerate that the mass media have kind of made him out to be since he died. So it should be full of a lot of good stories, maybe some clarifications, some expansions on his life that haven't been put out anywhere else. Should be a really
I'm
good read.
excited. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to this book coming out.
If you have again, if you have issues, let me know so we can make sure you get a hard copy somehow.
Yeah.
So that's coming out. So we have that looking for coming up. We hope to have a guest on. Like I said, we won't spoil it right here in case it doesn't work out. But we hope to have a guest join us within the next time we do this, so we can talk Cielo Drive Part Two.
Oh,
With
but if he doesn't, it's okay because like Tim and I are good company enough for you
yeah,
guys.
no, but if he does, it'll be another perspective on it.
Oh, it'd be great. I would love to talk to him. And also, like I love him very much because when I visited Sharon's old home in London, which I tend to do a lot because I like seeing it when I go to Sloane Square, he was like, you're free to come. Like, he's like, Tina, you're free to come and visit like me and Cielo at Cielo sometime. And that made me so happy because the last time I spoke to him was maybe like a year and a half ago. And before that, it was like a year before that. So it's like I'm so happy that he remembered me, because I messaged him years ago asking him about the home and how it's like and all of that. And I'm sure that a lot of people like have driven him crazy and are constantly trying to film there. So like I do hope that he gets some sense of peace, because it's a beautiful place, and he made the smartest decision with his dad in 1999, or whenever it was, when they decided to build a house there.
That whole story alone of how they
Yeah.
found that property is worth talking about, completely independent of everything else, because it's a
But
million to one shot.
next time, yes.
Yeah,
But let's save that next time,
we'll
because
save that
this
for next time.
is too long. So yeah, over an hour. So we'll end the recording, and we'll
Sounds
speak
good.
next time. Is that okay?
Yes, we'll speak afterwards, privately set some stuff up. But thanks to everyone who's joining
We'll
us. We'll be
save the
back on
details.
track with some more, and keep it real, man.